To outsiders, it looked like just another rap beef. To the people involved, it was a countdown. In Jacksonville, where drill music blurs the line between art and action, losing a close friend can mean more than heartbreak. It can mean retaliation. When that loss hit, one man didn't walk away. He picked up a rifle and went hunting. What followed was a violent chain reaction that left one man dead and another facing life behind bars. Now, you know how New York stamped drill as their sound, Chicago made it raw and real, and Atlanta turned trap into a whole lifestyle? Well, down in Florida, especially Jacksonville, they're building something way darker, a lane of their own. Folks call it murder rap, and it ain't no metaphor. This is music, where artists are straight up rapping about real bodies, real enemies, and real streets they're still beefing over. The Jacksonville sheriff, Mike Williams, once said social media is basically the gang graffiti of the 1980s, and he wasn't lying. Back then, walls told the story. Now it's Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. The beefs, the threats, the disrespect, the confessions, all of it lives online. And once you start paying attention to what's happening in Jacksonville, it's hard to unsee it. This ain't hidden violence. It's loud, it's public, it's uploaded in HD. Usually when people cover street violence, the hardest part is figuring out why it even happened. But in Jacksonville, the why is right there in the music, in the captions, in the comments. The city is watching a gang war unfold in real time, and the whole world is watching with them. Music ain't just the soundtrack anymore. It's the fuel. It's what keeps the fire burning and spreads it further than the streets ever could. And here's the wild part. Jacksonville is overflowing with talent right now. If you're not deep into hip hop, you might miss it, but the skill is undeniable. To really get what's going on, you got to understand where rap came from. At its core, rap was always a battle. Two mics, two voices, one winner, bragging, clowning, out-rhyming the next man. That competitive energy is the foundation, but sometimes that competition turns personal. The bars turn into threats. The disses turn into funerals. We saw it in the 90s with East Coast versus West Coast, a rivalry so heated it ended up taking Tupac and Biggie with it. Legends lost to a beef that went way past the music. Now Jacksonville has its own version of that story, playing out with two rival camps, ATK and KTA. You can search all day and find 100 different breakdowns of what those letters stand for, but everyone agrees on one thing. That K stands for kill, and that alone tells you how deep this runs. There's a whole ecosystem online built around this beef. Channels like Quiet Room, run by Queens Flip, focus on the lyrical side, breaking down the disses and rap battles. Trap Life documentaries go straight into the street side, showing how the music and crime bleed together. Insider Hotspot does both, pulling back the curtain on the lifestyles, the struggles, and the secrets behind the artists. Everybody's documenting it like a series, but for the people living it, this ain't entertainment. Back in 2019, that reality turned deadly outside Paradise Gentlemen's Club on Bay Meadows Road. A mass shooting popped off right after a show, taking the life of rapper Willie Addison, known in the streets and on the mic as Boss Goon. He had just finished performing and was riding out with his family when the shots rang out. No warning, no mercy. And it didn't stop there. In the chaos, the family of ATK rapper Kasu got hit too. His own father, Abdul Robinson, was shot in the back. Seeing his blood spilled like that changed something in Kasu. That pain sat heavy. It ate at him. And according to the allegations, it pushed him to throw away his freedom and a future in rap to get revenge, supposedly killing a man in broad daylight. You see, when people talk about Jacksonville, Kasu is one of those names that make the air feel heavy. In the streets, his reputation is solidified, cold, reckless, disrespectful in a way that reminds folks of Chi-Rock legends like FBG Duck. Kasu wasn't just involved in the violence, he leaned into it, he fed off it. Every time an op died, he was right there online, clowning, dissing, and pouring salt in fresh wounds. But June 2018 changed everything. That summer, ATK's top dog, Youngin Ace, got caught in a brutal ambush. 8 bullets hit him, but somehow he survived. His brother didn't. Neither did two of his closest friends. That moment cracked something open in the city. Lines got darker, sides got clearer, and for Kasu, who was already locked in, revenge became the mission. KTA didn't slow down either. Instead of cooling off, they doubled back, mocking Ace's pain and celebrating his loss. Then they went even further. On January 16, 2019, they took out Willie Addison, better known as Boss Goon. That one hit different. Boss Goon wasn't just another rapper. He was Kasu's brother, blood, family, a man who had just come home after doing 10 long years behind bars, trying to restart his life only to be gunned down weeks later. The way it happened made it even colder. Boss Goon had just finished performing at a birthday party at Paradise Gentlemen's Club. He was riding out with his father, his brother, and other family members when the ambush came. Bullets tore through the car like rain in a hurricane. Everybody got hit, but only Boss Goon didn't make it. The rest had to live with it. That pain stuck deep. From that moment on, Kasu was no longer thinking about music or fame. He was thinking about get back. He had almost lost Ace. He had lost his brother. His father had been shot. His family was under fire. In the streets, that's the kind of pain that turns grief into action. And Kasu was ready to move. Almost a year later, January 15, 2020, the revenge finally came. But so did the end of his freedom. A rival rapper named Charles McCormick, known as Lil Buck, made a fatal mistake. Right after Boss Goon died, he dropped a song mocking the death. To the outside world, it was just a diss track. To Kasu, it sounded like a confession. In his mind, Buck wasn't just talking, he was involved. That was enough. Kasu linked up with his father and two others, and they went hunting. They found Lil Buck at the Arlington Shopping Plaza. The plan was simple, but luck wasn't on their side. An officer just happened to be close enough to witness a man standing over Lil Buck, emptying a clip and ending his life right there on the pavement. At first, police didn't know it was Kasu, but witnesses saw everything. They described the shooter jumping into a stolen gray Nissan Altima, and that's when the chase started. The city turned into a racetrack, sirens screaming, tires burning. The run ended when the car crashed in a neighborhood on Townsend Boulevard. Kasu and his people bailed out and scattered like roaches when the lights came on. One ran off with a rifle, the other two went the opposite way. Those two broke into a woman's home, desperate for cover. They dragged her down before she could reach her phone. She later said they tried to choke her to keep her quiet. She stopped fighting after that, doing whatever they said just to stay alive. They changed clothes in her husband's closet, grabbed her phone, and made calls right in front of her like nothing mattered. It was sloppy, desperate, panic everywhere, and panic always leaves a trail. That trail started with tattoos. One of the men didn't cover his ink, and when the woman gave her description, police quickly identified Dominique Barner. Once Barner got picked up, everything started to unravel. Kasu might have slipped through the cracks, but Barner became the leak that flooded the whole operation. On a wiretap, he couldn't stop talking. He wasn't whispering either. He was bragging, breaking down the murder step by step like he was proud of it. He told them he was the getaway driver. He explained how they watched Lil Buck, how they followed him to the plaza, how they planned the hit. He even mentioned a rifle left in the car. When cops searched the vehicle, they struck gold. Inside was an AR-style rifle, a handgun, and a white t-shirt. Lab results came back with Sue's DNA and hair all over it. That was the nail in the coffin. From there, the police turned to social media because that's where modern street beefs leave receipts. And Kasu had left plenty. Photos with guns, videos taunting ops, a child singing Ace's KSO homicide, a clip of Lil Buck with the caption "Bye Bye." Even a video of Kasu at a nail salon saying he killed someone and went to get his toes done right after. The streets used to keep secrets. Social media killed that, and he didn't stop there. On Ace's song ATK War, Kasu basically reenacted the murder in his verse, talking about stepping with choppers and riding with convicted felons. The bars weren't subtle. They were a confession in rhythm. By then, the feds already had a mountain of evidence, but the final blow came when Bonner sat down and told everything. He confirmed Kasu was the shooter, confirmed the gun, confirmed the motive. It was all get back for Boss Goon. The media tried to paint it like Kasu's father was part of the hit, but Bonner cleared that up too. His dad just picked him up afterward, which still tied him to the case and landed him an accessory charge. By the time everything came together, there was no escape. Dashcam footage caught the shooting in 4K. Home cameras caught the escape. Witnesses saw the crash. DNA sealed it. Words sealed it again. Kasu never had a chance to walk away clean. Every move, every post, every bar pushed the walls in closer. And in the end, the same music and internet that helped build his name helped bury his freedom, locking him up on a second-degree murder charge. During the trial, opening statements set the tone immediately, with the state making it clear what they wanted the jury to focus on when deciding the guilt of Hakeem Robinson and Leroy Whitaker. Assistant State Attorney Joel Cooper Jr. grabbed the room early, getting straight to the heart of the case, the motive, and why this killing happened in the first place. According to Cooper, it all started with a diss track. The victim, Charles McCormick, had recorded a song that mentioned Robinson's late brother, Willie Addison, who had been killed earlier. The state argued that those lyrics weren't just music, they were a provocation. In their view, that song lit the fuse. To really understand the tension, Cooper walked the jury into the world surrounding the case. McCormick was allegedly associated with 6 Block, a group connected to Jacksonville rapper Foolio, also known as Mr. Six. On the other side was ATK, short for Ace's Top Killers, a group linked to rapper Youngin Ace. Court records, Cooper said, show that Robinson, his brothers, his father, and his co-defendants were all documented members of ATK, and when those two sides collide, especially with a name being mentioned in a song, things can turn deadly. Cooper stressed that Robinson's grief over his brother's death ran deep. Deep enough, the state claims, to push him toward violence. But then came the part that made the courtroom feel heavier. Cooper made it clear that McCormick had nothing to do with Willie Addison's killing. He wasn't involved in the shooting. He wasn't even connected to it. The only thing he did, according to the prosecution, was say Addison's name in a song. Adding to the senselessness, Robinson's own defense later admitted McCormick wasn't even a real musician in the industry. The song had never been officially released. From there, Cooper didn't soften his language. He called the killing a wicked, premeditated murder and a vile scheme, then walked the jury through McCormick's final moments. That day, McCormick had just left a temp agency at the Merrill Road Shopping Center. He was holding a folder filled with paperwork for a new job he'd just secured. According to Cooper, McCormick had no idea that opportunity would never turn into a first day of work. The state says Robinson, Whitaker, and a third man, Bonner, who later took a plea deal, were driving around the area in a stolen Nissan Altima. When they spotted McCormick, the car pulled up. Cooper told the jury that Robinson jumped out, chased McCormick down, and shot him outside the agency. The description was graphic. The prosecutor said the force of the gunfire was so violent that flesh, brain matter, and teeth were thrown into the air. After the shooting, the 3 men allegedly fled, leading police on a high-speed chase before crashing the car. Then they split up. According to the state, Whitaker and Bonner ran to a nearby house and carried out a violent home invasion, while Robinson went in another direction. One of the most chilling details came when Cooper explained the alleged mindset behind the killing. Right before the shooting, Robinson is accused of calling a member of 6 Block on Instagram and saying he had caught one of their people slipping, essentially signaling that someone was about to be killed. Then came the social media posts. The state told the jury that shortly after McCormick was murdered, Robinson allegedly posted online saying he killed someone and then went to get his toes done. Days later, he posted McCormick's own song to his Instagram story with a short caption saying, "Bye-bye." Cooper told the jury they wouldn't just hear about the crime, they would see it. Dashcam footage from a nearby witness captured the shooting. He admitted the shooter's face couldn't be clearly seen, but argued the person in the video was wearing Robinson's clothes and carrying Robinson's gun. He summed it all up by telling the jury the evidence was like a puzzle. Each piece mattered on its own, but once assembled, it revealed exactly what happened on January 15th, 2020. The state also pointed to DNA evidence and addressed a major question head-on: why the murder weapon wasn't found in the car. Cooper said Robinson took it with him. Still, other guns recovered from the vehicle, he argued, showed Whitaker was armed and ready to participate. Even if he didn't pull the trigger, the state said he was fully involved. Cooper warned the jury about the people who would testify, including Robinson's father and Barner. He didn't ask the jury to like them, only to listen to them. He closed with an emotional challenge. If Charles McCormick could see all this evidence today, would there be any doubt about who killed him? Then the defense took over. Robinson's attorney, Tyra Kawas, acknowledged the horror of the crime. A man chased down and executed in broad daylight in front of witnesses. But she told the jury the real issue wasn't what happened. It was who did it. She directed their attention to the dashcam video. Robinson, she said, is 6 feet tall with a heavy build. The shooter in the footage appears much shorter, somewhere between 5'5" and 5'11". In her words, the jury was being asked not to believe their own eyes. According to Kawas, once police realized the shooter's body type didn't match Robinson's, they should have walked away. Instead, she argued, they doubled down. As for the state's witnesses, she urged skepticism. Barner, she said, was caught red-handed and was simply pointing the finger to save himself. She also attacked Robinson's father, saying he wasn't truly a father at all, just a DNA contributor who had 9 children with 5 women and wasn't present in Robinson's life. While his father was absent, Kawas painted Robinson as someone trying to build something real, a rising local rapper, gaining attention, right on the edge of success. Less than 2 weeks before the murder, she said, Robinson had signed a deal with Cinematic Music Group and received a $40,000 advance. Her question to the jury was simple. Why would someone with that kind of momentum throw it all away? Instead, she pointed the blame at Whitaker and Robinson Sr., arguing they were the real culprits and the reason they were eager to testify. She also highlighted that Robinson's phone wasn't used during the incident and that his DNA was mixed with others, not standing alone as clear proof. Whitaker's attorney, Julie Schlacks, followed with a sharp and focused message. From her perspective, only one name mattered in this case, and it wasn't her client's. She told the jury the lone gunman in the video was not Leroy Whitaker. Then she asked why Whitaker was even on trial. To make her point, she told jurors to write a heading in their notebooks, evidence of Leroy Whitaker's participation. By the end of the trial, she predicted only one name would belong there, and it wouldn't be Whitaker's, it would be Barner's. Schlacks described Barner as an admitted 2-time killer and a self-proclaimed paid assassin, someone brought in to patch holes in the state's case. She reminded the jury that both Barner and Robinson Sr. were linked to another murder entirely, and that Barner had been charged in a violent home invasion right after McCormick was killed. She wrapped it up with a warning that stuck. Barner wasn't on that stand out of conscience. He was there chasing freedom, hoping this testimony would buy him a way back into society. And that's the risky part. The prosecution's entire case rested on Barner. Their star witness was a man who had already pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. In exchange for a deal, he took the stand and told the jury exactly how the killing, in his own words, went down. Barner didn't try to paint himself as innocent. He admitted he was involved and put the blame squarely on Hakeem Robinson, identifying him as the shooter. He told the jury that Robinson jumped out of the car and started firing, and that he saw it happen. According to Barner, this wasn't random street violence. This was retaliation, plain and simple. The target was Charles McCormick. The motive, Barner said, was a diss track Buck had released mocking the death of Willie Addison. Addison was the stepson of Hakeem Robinson's father and had been killed in a drive-by shooting not long before. To drive that point home, the jury actually had to sit in the courtroom and listen to the song themselves. Barner testified that McCormick wasn't just stumbled upon by chance. He said they actively hunted him. He told the court that he went on to the Duval County Clerk of Court website to track down McCormick's address. Once they had it, Barner, Abdul Robinson Jr., Hakeem Robinson, and Leroy Whitaker all got into a car and drove by McCormick's apartment to scope it out. When asked why they needed to know exactly where McCormick lived, Barner was blunt. He said it was so they could get everything in motion. When pressed further, he made it clear what that meant. The plan was to kill McCormick. Barner then walked the jury through the day of the murder. He testified that he, Robinson, and Whitaker spent hours parked outside McCormick's apartment, just waiting. When McCormick finally left, they followed him to a shopping plaza in a stolen Nissan Altima. From there, Barner described how the plan was supposed to work. He parked the car near McCormick's vehicle and set it up for a quick escape. The idea was for Robinson to wait until McCormick got back into his car, open fire, and then they'd speed off immediately. But Barner said that isn't what happened. The moment McCormick walked out of the staffing agency, Robinson allegedly jumped out of the car and started shooting him while McCormick ran for his life. When the prosecutor asked what Robinson did next, Barner said he chased him down. When asked how it ended, Barner said Robinson killed him. Barner admitted he didn't actually see the exact moment the trigger was pulled. Once the shooting started, they had already rounded the side of the building. Still, he pointed out a detail he said wasn't a coincidence. McCormick was killed exactly 1 year to the day after Willie Addison was murdered. He also reminded the jury that Addison wasn't the only one hit in that earlier shooting. Abdul Robinson Jr. was wounded too. After the shot stopped, Barner said he hit the gas. He sped away with Robinson and Whitaker in the car, but it didn't take long before police spotted them. That's when the chase started. The pursuit ended in a crash near Townsend Boulevard. Barner testified that all three men jumped out of the car and ran, leaving their guns behind. Crime scene photos shown to the jury backed that part up. In the chaos, they split up. Robinson ran one way, Barner and Whitaker ran the other, jumping fences through the neighborhood until they forced their way into a woman's house and briefly held her there. Eventually, they got out and caught a ride. Barner told the jury that Abdul Robinson Sr., known as Blue, picked them up, and during that ride, they explained everything that had happened. Later that same day, Barner was arrested for the home invasion, and that's where the defense went on the attack. During cross-examination, Barner's credibility took a beating. Defense attorneys pointed out that when police first questioned him, he lied. He didn't mention the shooting at all and even denied stealing anything from the house where he was hiding. The defense also forced Barner to admit something major. He had taken plea deals in 2 separate murder cases. By testifying in this trial, he was avoiding a possible life sentence and instead facing the chance of serving around 20 years. Whitaker's attorney, Julie Schlacks, drove that point home hard. She portrayed Barner as a paid assassin, someone who survives by cutting deals and pointing fingers whenever it benefits him, no matter who it costs. By the time July 31st, 2025 rolled around, the jury had heard enough. After days of testimony and years of buildup, they found Hakeem Robinson and Leroy Whitaker guilty of first-degree murder for the killing of Charles McCormick. But the way investigators pieced this case together was just as chaotic and disturbing as the crime itself. In the immediate aftermath of the shooting, Whitaker and Dominique Barner ran. Their escape didn't end quietly. Prosecutors said the two forced their way into a random woman's home, desperate to ditch the clothes they were wearing during the murder. Their solution was as strange as it was incriminating. They stole the homeowner's husband's pajamas and changed right there, trying to erase themselves from the crime scene. That detail came full circle when Robinson's own father, Abdul Robinson Sr., took the stand. He admitted that he was the one who picked them up after the home invasion. He didn't just recognize them, he remembered exactly what they were wearing: pajamas covered in Mountain Dew logos. The woman whose home was invaded also testified, describing the fear of having armed men burst into her house. She even identified a tattoo on Whitaker's right arm, but the defense pushed back hard. pointing out that in her earliest statement, she had said her attacker didn't have a tattoo there at all. As for Barner, he never let a jury decide his fate. He pleaded guilty, cut a deal with the state, and agreed to testify against Robinson and Whitaker. In doing so, he admitted to everything, including assaulting the woman during the home invasion. Then came Christopher Smith from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. His testimony raised eyebrows when he admitted that he didn't even realize the home invasion victim had failed to identify Whitaker in a lineup shortly after the crime. Throughout the trial, Whitaker's attorney, Julie Schlacks, stayed locked on one message. Her client was not the shooter. According to her, every real piece of evidence pointed back to Barner. When Schlacks got her chance to cross-examine Barner, she went straight for his credibility. She forced him to admit that he had lied to police and lawyers in the past, even while under oath. Barner didn't deny it. The defense painted him as a violent criminal who survives by trading information for freedom. To reinforce that point, the jury heard about another murder case tied to Barner, one where he was allegedly paid to kill someone, but instead shot the wrong person. One important wrinkle in the case was that Whitaker and Robinson were being judged by separate juries, even though the crimes were connected. After just 3.5 hours of deliberation, the jury returned with its decision. Prosecutors said the motive was clear: gang rivalry, a diss track, hurt pride mixed with long-standing beef. In their version of events, Robinson was the man seen on video pulling the trigger, while Whitaker was right there with him, armed, mobile, and ready to help him get away. Once the verdict was read, the reaction was swift. State Attorney Melissa Nelson released a statement praising law enforcement and the prosecution team, saying the jury had held 2 men accountable for stalking and killing someone in broad daylight over disputes tied to drill rap. She emphasized that the verdict removed 2 killers from the streets. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office followed with its own statement, crediting years of investigative work and coordination with prosecutors. They called the verdicts proof of their commitment to stopping senseless violence and said justice had finally been served. Because the case didn't involve the death penalty, the legal outcome was clear. Defense attorney Chris Carson later explained that the conviction carried a mandatory life sentence. As the verdict echoed through the courtroom, Whitaker turned and searched for his father. When their eyes met, Whitaker Sr. raised a thumbs up and tried to smile, even as the weight of the moment crushed him. Outside the courtroom, he made one thing clear: he wasn't abandoning his son. He said his love wasn't conditional, and that no matter where his son ended up, he would be there with him every step of the way. Still, the pain was written all over him. He described the verdict as a physical hit, something that flattened him over and over again. By October 2025, the legal chapter officially closed. A Duval County judge sentenced both Robinson, known publicly as rapper Sue, and Whitaker to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the January 2020 murder of Charles Lil Buck McCormick. Whitaker's punishment didn't stop there. He also received a second life sentence, to be served at the same time, for burglary involving assault or battery connected to the home invasion. Before sentencing, Whitaker's attorney asked the judge to show mercy, pointing to his limited criminal history and his young age at the time of the murder. The judge wasn't moved. Just before the sentence was finalized, the courtroom went silent as a statement from Lil Buck's mother was read aloud. She took everyone back to 1996, the year her son was born, describing him as a bright light from the very beginning. His life wasn't easy, especially after losing his father at a young age, but she said Charles never let bitterness define him. He carried pain quietly and met the world with loyalty, kindness, and a smile people still remembered. Faith, she said, was central to who he was. As a child, he could recite books of the Bible from memory. After his father's death, he stood before more than 1,000 people and spoke about love and faith. As the only boy among 5 siblings, he was the heart of their family, deeply devoted to his mother and grandparents. She shared one final painful coincidence. Charles was killed on a Wednesday, the same day of the week his father had been killed years earlier. For more than 2 decades, Wednesdays had carried grief for their family. While nothing could undo that loss, she said there was some peace in knowing these men could never take another life. Her son, she reminded the court, was killed simply because someone didn't like what he said in a song. She ended with a message that reached beyond the courtroom, urging the community to reject music and messages that turn real violence into entertainment. One reckless choice, she said, can destroy everyone involved. In the end, no one truly wins. Families on all sides are left broken, but she holds on to the belief that her son's light and his faith will never fade.